Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Good morning from Dr. Michela Ferri, and welcome to the 6th episode of the radio program Discovering Sacred Christian Art. Today, I want to remember the figure of Saint Josaphat Kuncevic. It's Monday, the 12th of November, and the liturgical feast is dedicated to this saint. Let me share with you some information about him. Saint Josaphat Kuncevic was born in 1580, and he died today, the 12th of November, in 1623. He was a Polish-Lithuanian monk and Archbishop of the Ruthenian Catholic Church, who was killed on the 12th of November, 1623, by angry mob in Vitebsk, in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and today is in Belarus. He is, and actually he is the best-known victim of this anti-Catholic violence related to implementing the Union of Brest, and is declared martyr and saint of the Catholic Church. His death reflects the conflict among the Christian Orthodox and Catholics that had intensified after Ruthenian Orthodox Church. And in the Catholic Church, we remember him today for the date of his death. There is a relic of this saint in the United States in the catacombs of Holy Trinity Roman Catholic Church in Chicago. So if you are around Chicago, or if you maybe live there, you can visit this relic. I don't have the possibility. I never visited Chicago, but I suggest you to search for the catacombs of the Holy Trinity Roman Catholic Church there in Chicago. And let me remind another great saint that we will celebrate on the 17th of November, Saint Elizabeth of Hungary. Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, she was born on the 7th of July in 1207, and she was born on 17th of November in 1231. And she's also known as Saint Elizabeth of Thuringia, a land in Germany. She was a princess of the Kingdom of Hungary, Landgravine of Thuringia, Germany, and she's still greatly venerated as Catholic saint because she was an early member of the Third Order of St. Francis, by which she is honored as its patroness. Elizabeth of Hungary was married at the age of 14, and she remained widowed at 20. After her husband's death, she sent her children away and regained her dowry, using the money to build a hospital where she herself served the sick. She became a symbol of the Christian charity. After her death, and she died at the age of 24, she had a short life but so intense, and she was canonized on the 25th of May in 1235, so only 4 years after her death. After a short overview on these two figures of saints, let me announce you the title of the radio talk of today, Early Christian Art, Churches in Rome, an introduction. In the episode number 1, we spoke about the origins of the early Christian art. In the episode 2, we spoke about the catacombs in Rome. In the episode 3, we spoke about the Vatican necropolis. In the episode 4, we spoke about St. Peter's Basilica, the Vatican Basilica, but the ancient one. And in the episode number 5, we spoke about St. Peter's Basilica, Vatican Basilica, the new Basilica, the second and new Basilica that we can see today in Rome. I strongly hope, my dear listeners, that you can visit Rome. And remember, before your visit in Rome, if you will plan a visit in Rome, to contact me. You can write me an email, oliapostles.edu. Here is Dr. Michela Ferri. I'm chair of the BA in Sacred Art at the Holy Apostles College and Seminary online program. I teach aesthetics of the sacred art, and hagiography, theology of the icon, and Christian iconography. First of all, let me divide this radio talk in some points, because my discourse of today, dedicated to the churches in Rome, is a prosecution after our two episodes, episode number 4 and episode number 5, dedicated to the greatest basilica and church of the world, that is St. Peter's Basilica. So in our previous 5 episodes, we have seen the origins of the Christian sacred art, the origins of the sacred art in the link with the city of Rome, which hosted the martyrdom of St. Peter and of St. Paul. We have seen the history of the catacombs of Rome, the history of the Vatican necropolis, that is not a catacomb, but a particular place. And in connection with the history and the contents of the Vatican necropolis, we also saw the history of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. St. Peter's Basilica in Rome is the heart of the Christendom, the embrace of the Christendom. We talked about the ancient Basilica and then about the new Vatican Basilica with an in-depth analysis of how it is externally and the history of the 5 doors. In our next episode, my dear listeners, I will talk about the interiors of our Vatican Basilica. And to be precise, please don't worry, I will continue to call it New Vatican Basilica, because as I explained in the episode number 4 and in episode number 5, we have in the modern age the project of the popes to build a new Vatican Basilica. And so what we see today when we are in St. Peter's Place is the new Vatican Basilica. Today, we will analyze which are the churches of Rome, the first place of worship in the city of the martyrdom of St. Peter and St. Paul, the city of the churches. But all our cities are cities of churches. I wrote articles dedicated to the cities, to the churches in the city of Milan, to the churches in the city of Rome, of course, and also to the churches, for example, in the cities of New York. So every church, every city is full of churches. Every city is full of places where the faith became something with a structure, with an entrance, where we can find a place where to pray. Also, I am writing a text dedicated to the churches in San Francisco and the missions in the Bay Area and in California. So we have churches not only in Rome, but Rome is the city of the churches because Rome was the first city of the Christianity. Because, as I told you before, because of the death of St. Peter and of St. Paul there in Rome. Pay attention. The churches of the city of Rome are more than 900. And this numerical figure makes it the city with more churches in the world. The history of all the churches of Rome accompanies the history of Rome for 17 centuries. So please, make a count from the event of the Edict of Constantine, that is also called the Edict of Milan, that happened in 313. Today we are in 2018, so it's 17 centuries. The history of Rome is the history of Christianity. Unfortunately, not before, because before the Edict of Constantine, we have the prohibition of the Christian worship. The churches of the city of Rome are a sign of religious, social, artistic, and architectural evolution. Social, artistic, and architectural for a region's evolution. After the grace period of the first centuries and after the persecutions, as I recall, the Roman Emperor Constantine I allowed the Christians to have their own places of worship, starting from 313, the Edict of Constantine, and the first churches originated in places where the first Christians met privately or in secret, which were divided into, as I told you in the episode number 1. First of all, houses of private citizens. They was there for secret celebrations and hosted meetings of the faithful. And we can recall the Latin word oracula, from which we now say oratory, the places in which we can pray. Second, we have in the ancient Rome, before the Edict of Constantine, not only these oracula, houses of private citizens, but also places where charity was done, distributing to the poor. The so-called, listen to me, diaconia. It's like the word we can use, diaconres, deacons, we say in Latin, but we borrow from the ancient Greek diaconia. The larger deaconries had several deacons, one of whom was the general manager and took the name archdeacon, as today. The third place, we can say that we had houses that owned a titulus. It's like to say now title, but the Latin word is titulus, and which were also called domus ecclesiae. So we can call them titulus, or in Latin again, domus ecclesiae. And domus ecclesiae, Latin again, can be translated as house of the assembly. And then from domus ecclesiae, we have the Italian term chiesa, that is church. But only the tituli is the plural in Latin of the word titulus. Titulus is just one, tituli, say many of them. Only the tituli were authorized to distribute the sacraments. Pope Marcel I, at the beginning of the 4th century, so in the age of Constantine, he confirmed that only the tituli were centers of administration of the church. The tituli could have more presbyters, and the most important priest of a title had the name of cardinal. So now you understand where the term cardinal comes from. The name cardinal comes from the Latin word cardo. Cardo is something core, something that can have a structure, the point of connection for a structure. So cardo for cardinal. So let me repeat the Latin words I used. Titulus, singular, tituli, plural. They are the original churches. Second, domus ecclesiae. Domus ecclesiae is the Latin expression to say the house of the assembly. And so we have the church, chiesa, in Italian, chiesa. And then cardinal, from the Latin word cardo. Now, let me share with you which are the principal churches in Rome. In Rome, we have 4 papal basilicas. 4. But the papal basilicas in Christianity are not 4. They are 6. Because we have 4 in Rome. The Basilica of St. Peter in Vatican, the Basilica of St. John in Lateran in Rome, the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, and the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. The other 2 basilicas are in Assisi, the other 2 papal basilicas of the world. So they are the St. Francis Basilica and the St. Mary of Angels Basilica. And you, my dear listeners, you will know from my next text that from the St. Francis Basilica comes the idea to build the mission in California. And from the St. Mary of Angels Basilica comes the idea to build the city of Los Angeles. But now, let me return back in Rome. Of these 6 papal basilicas, so 2 are in Assisi and 4 are in Rome. The papal basilicas are 4, but until the mid-19th century, there are a 5th Roman papal basilica, the Basilica of St. Lawrence outside the walls, that was also patriarchal, but now we consider a minor basilica. St. John in Lateran. The Basilica of St. John in Lateran, and I prefer to start from this basilica, not because it is the major, but because, as I recalled in my previous episode, it was founded by Emperor Constantine as the main church in Rome before St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican. First, this is the first of the 4 papal basilicas. And remember, they are 6 because 2 are in Assisi. The Basilica of St. John in Lateran was converted to this Baroque style in which we can see it today by the famous Francesco Borromini, Italian artist and architect. Until 1309, next to the Basilica, there was the residence of the popes because they didn't live in Vatican, they lived in Lateran. And this residence of the popes remains, are still visible in the chapel so-called Sancta Sanctorum and in the so-called Scala Santa. Until the 19th century, all the pontiffs were crowned in the Lateran. Pay attention. Next to the Basilica of St. John in Lateran is the famous Lateran Palace. And St. John in Lateran, I can say that is the cathedral of the Diocese of Rome. Second, but we have already studied it, St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican. We already know it, and we can pass to the third basilica, St. Paul outside the walls. The Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls stands on the place that the tradition indicates as that of the burial of the Apostle Paul, in the center of an old inn on the road to Ostia, the ancient city, which is the famous Ostiense Way. The building dates back to the 4th century, so Constantinian age, and was rebuilt after the fire of 1823. Then we have Santa Maria Maggiore of Rome. The Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore, famous, was founded by Pope Liberius in the place where we now see this basilica. Because in the night of the 4th of August, in the 4th century, in the year 352, had snowed. And it's difficult to see the snow in Rome, believe me. Most important in Rome, I mean, in August the 4th is very difficult. But a miracle took place in that night, and for this reason, the feast of the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore is celebrated on August the 5th in honor of Our Lady of the Snow. This miracle was interpreted by Pope Liberius with the desire of Our Lady to build a church in the place of the miracle. So, each year, every single year, on 5 of August, the Snow of Mary, Our Lady of the Snow, is still celebrated. On this occasion, snow white petals from the roof of the church, which are collected by pilgrims and brought to the sick, that you can see they fly. The church houses the famous image, an icon, Salus Populi Romani. This is the title of the icon, and I can translate it for you in English: Salvation of the Roman people. And inside the church, there are also several tombs of important Roman pontiffs. At the main altar is the tomb of the famous artist Bernini. Its bell tower, the bell tower of this basilica, is the tallest in Rome. These are the 4 papal basilicas in Rome, and then in other episodes I will speak about the 2 papal basilicas of Assisi. But let me complete now the path, because once upon a time, if you wanted to visit Rome, maybe the guides suggested you to visit the famous 7 churches of Rome. So, which are the 7 churches of Rome? The first 4 churches are the churches I listed until now. And the other 3 churches, let me explain you, they are St. Lawrence outside the walls, Santa Croce in Jerusalem, that is Holy Cross in Jerusalem, and the third, San Sebastian outside the walls. The first, San Lorenzo outside the walls, and we can say that is near to the Verano Cemetery, and with the tomb of St. Lawrence inside. Remember that St. Lawrence is celebrated on 10 of August in early Christian medieval style, and also this basilica, as I recalled before, was considered a patriarchal basilica. To the pilgrims who came to Rome for a long time, it was required the famous tour of the 7 churches that could be visited on foot in one day. I can confess you that I never visited all these 7 in one day, because each time I go to Rome, I visit each of these 7 churches, but in different days. So I don't know how it will be, but I suggest you, if you have time, if you have the occasion, to follow the tradition and to visit these 7 churches on foot on one day. In the 16th century, the tradition was revitalized by San Filippo Neri, and he was one of the participants of this tradition. Then we have the 5th, the Basilica of Santa Croce in Jerusalem, the Basilica of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem. This basilica is in the place where there were the palaces of the Roman Empress Helena, mother of Constantine, near the Lateran. Here, in this palace, in the church now, are preserved those that, according to the tradition, are the relics of the cross. This is the reason why this church, the 6th church, most important church in Rome, is dedicated to the Holy Cross in Jerusalem. And then the 7th is the Basilica of San Sebastian outside the walls. This basilica is one of the most important of the Christianity, the 7th listed as the seventh of the 7 churches in Rome. It is near the catacombs of Saint Sebastian, as I explained you in the episode number 2, on the Appian Way, at the intersection with the Way of the 7 churches, as I am explaining you now, and this is the basilica that was built on the tomb of the martyr, Saint Sebastian. Let me explain you now. After this overview on the 7 churches, so the 4 papal basilicas and the other 3, which are the early Christian and medieval churches in Rome, it will be interesting to know that the first Christian churches date back to the Edict of Tolerance, as you know, in 313, and the earliest buildings of the 4 patriarchal basilicas belonged to the earliest churches of these early times. First, please follow me. Now, since I sent to our Dr. Sebastian Mahfoud only the images of the 7 churches, and you can see the images of the 7 churches on the website of Discovering Sacred Christian Art. For the images I am telling you about, please, if you are in front of your computer or if you are in front of your smartphone, get ready on Google Images, because I will need you to have in front of you at least the principal image of each church I'm speaking. For what concerns the early Christian and medieval churches, first, the famous Pantheon that now we know as Santa Maria ed Martyres. So now you are searching on Google Images, Pantheon. The Pantheon, as we see today, was completely rebuilt in the 2nd century under the Emperor Hadrian as a temple, pagan temple of course, dedicated to all gods, in the place of the previous building dating back to the time of the Emperor Augustus, of which we can still see today the signature on the architrave of the tympanum. The building of the Pantheon has been well preserved because as early as in 609 it was used as a church with the name of Santa Maria ed Martyres, that is, Our Lady of the Martyrs. The title refers to the fact that a large quantity of relics of martyrs had been brought into the church. Then, the second, the Basilica of St. Peter in Vincoli. Now I will explain you why this Italian name. The Basilica of St. Peter in Vincoli. This basilica, the Basilica of St. Peter in Vincoli, not far from the Colosseum, is the statue. In this basilica there is the statue of Moses sculpted by Michelangelo. In this basilica, St. Peter in Vincoli, under the high altar are the chains, and so this is the reason why the name chains in Italian is Vincoli. Chains. The chains with which, the tradition says, St. Peter was chained. The building of the church, and I can call it a basilica because it's a minor basilica, dates back to the 455, but stands on a previous construction of the 2nd century, maybe destroyed, because we didn't have in the 2nd century the Edict of Constantine, and Christian needs to stay at a secret. The third, please search for the famous third, is the Basilica of Santa Sabina. Santa Sabina, the famous Basilica of Santa Sabina, located in the Aventine Hill, one of the hills of Rome. It's a church of the 5th century, built in the 5th century on the tomb of Saint Sabina, as well as one of the best preserved early Christian churches. This church is famous. Although heavily restored, the Basilica of Saint Sabina is the seat of General Curia of the Order of Friars, preachers. And this is one of the most important basilicas, minor basilicas we have in Rome. Number 4, after the Pantheon, after the Basilica of St. Peter in Vincoli, St. Peter of Chains, after the Basilica of St. Sabina, we have the famous Santa Maria in Cosmedin. Santa Maria in Cosmedin. I hope you are finding images. Santa Maria in Cosmedin, it is located between the Circus Maximus and the Tiber. But don't worry, I will send you images also of these minor churches. The Romanesque Basilica of Santa Maria in Cosmedin dates back to the 6th century and was enlarged in the 8th century with 3 naves, as we see now. The bell tower was built in the 12th century. So, in the Middle Ages, the interior of the church contains 18 ancient columns, cosmatic floors, and mosaics, as well as the Gothic canopy above the altar. The church, for who loves to be a tourist in Rome, is also known for the so-called mouth of the truth, la bocca della verità, which is located on a wall of the entrance. It is an ancient manhole covered with the face of a god, a pagan god of a river. The hole to the left, the mouse-shaped manhole cover, was used as a machine of truth, since it cut off the hands of the liars. You can try it. It doesn't work, believe me. The fifth famous church is the church of Santa Prassede, not far from Santa Maria Maggiore. Santa Prassede, Prassede, it was built in 822 and houses beautiful 9th century mosaics. Particularly interesting is the chapel of San Zenone inside, in the right aisle, also called the Garden of Paradise. The church houses in a niche to the right of the entrance a column which, according to the tradition, was that of the flogging of Christ. And the church contains also the relics of maybe 2,000 martyrs who were brought here from the catacombs. The sixth church is the Church of St. George in Velabro. St. George in Velabro. This church stands next to the Arch of Janus in the square of the Cloaca Maxima. The origins of this ancient church are not well known, but they seem to date back to the 6th century. Although some sources in archives date its construction even more anteriorly. The seventh church is the Church of San Clemens in the Lateran. San Clemens in the Lateran. Also, in the proximity of the Colosseum, it was erected in the 12th century, in the Middle Ages, on a basilica that existed in the 4th century that had been destroyed. The seats of the choir are still those of the oldest church. The medieval apse mosaic is partly the ancient one. In the crypt below, which is decorated with magnificent cosmetic floors and frescoes, one can descend into the foundations of the early Christian church, under which there are the remains of a Roman house from the 2nd century and a construction with a mitreum. Mitreum is the place for the women attending the celebrations. The 8th is the basilica, minor basilica of Saint Mary in Trastevere, the famous basilica of Saint Mary in Trastevere that dates back to the 12th century. Saint Mary in Trastevere, that is the side beyond the Tevere. There are significant 12th century mosaics in the apse. The Tevere is the river, so the Trastevere is the place in Rome beyond the river, a second part of Rome. And then, in the 9th position, we have the Basilica of the Holy Four, coronated in the Celio Hill, with a convent complex of the 12th century. So, let me repeat the name of these marvelous 9 churches, since they follow the previous 7 churches we see. The Pantheon also called Saint Mary of the Martyrs, and then the Basilica, minor Basilica of Saint Peter of the Chains, San Pietro in Vincoli, and then the Basilica of Santa Sabina, Saint Sabina. 4, the Church of Santa Maria in Cosmedin. 5, the Church of Santa Prassede. 6th, the Church of St. George in Velabro. 7th, the Church of San Clemente in Lateran. 8th, the Basilica of Saint Mary in Trastevere. And 9th, the Basilica of Santi Quattro Coronati, Holy Four coronated. And then we have also Gothic churches in Rome. So let me conclude this radio talk with a brief overview on the Gothic churches in the city of Rome. Basically, there is only one large Gothic church in Rome, a very important church for us and for the history of the Dominican friars, of the Dominican order. This is the famous church of Saint Mary sopra Minerva, Santa Maria sopra Minerva. Why Minerva? Minerva is the Roman pagan name of the god Athens, the daughter of Jupiter. Santa Maria sopra Minerva is important for us for the reference to Saint Catherine of Siena. The facade of the church is from the early Renaissance in the 15th century. The Dominican friars wanted to build the church in 1280 with calling Gothic workers for Florence. In the richly decorated interior, there is the tomb of Saint Catherine of Siena and also the tomb of the famous painter Beato Angelico. Among the numerous works by the artist Bernini and other famous artists, we note the Christ Judge of Melozzo of Forlì, the Risen Christ by Michelangelo, whose nudity has been covered with a metal cloth for centuries. And in the square in front of the church, there is the famous Pulcino of the Minerva. That is an elephant. The annexed convent of the Dominicans was the seat of the famous Inquisition tribunal, since 1628. And also the scientist and philosopher Galileo Galilei was tried inside 5 years later in 1633. This is a marvelous church with a marvelous convent of the Dominican friars. I hope you can visit it. Let me add just one information. However, even the back of the famous church Trinity of the Mounts, Trinità dei Monti, is to be considered a late example of the Gothic style in Rome, built perhaps not by Gothic workers from Florence, as in the case of Santa Maria sopra Minerva, but by French laborers at the beginning of the 16th century. In fact, we can see a cross-vaulted ogival roof. Well, my dear listeners, in the next 7th episode, which I will hold on Thursday, November the 29th, I will talk about, proceeding by chronological order, the Renaissance churches of Rome, and in the 8th episode that I will keep on Thursday, December the 6th, I will speak about the Baroque churches of Rome. I hope you enjoyed this radio talk, and I wish you to have a marvelous day. And remember that you can contact me. Here is Dr. Michela Ferri, mferri@holyapostles.edu. You can write me emails. You can have Skype calls with me. I will be very glad to see your interest in this path at the discovery of the sacred Christian art. May God bless you. In Christ. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.